So let's say you mixed everything, your recording is done, you cleaned up all the tracks, and you're ready to create a score and parts from your music. You could do this in Logic with the score editor or by itself. But if you have Finale, I recommend you use Finale because it has a much more powerful layout tools and you can customize the look of your music. The first thing I like to do is create duplicates of the tracks because I don't want to change the playback. So I create tracks that I can edit just for the score. To do that, I create an empty track. Now I can create a track stack with that track in it, and I make sure I select folder stack. I call this tracks for score. And I'm going to move this all the way up so I know where I find it when I want to move all these tracks in there. So let's start with the bass. I see there are two different bass tracks in this song. At the beginning we have a synth bass, and 8 bars later we switch to an electric bass. So I'm going to copy these two tracks. I hold Option and just select them and drag them into that track stack folder that we just created right here. So now I can delete this piano track that I don't really need. I just needed it to create the track stack. Delete this out. So I want to combine those two bass tracks into one. I select the two regions, I press Command J. And not that it matters, but I'd like to move it to the attitude bass track, which is the acoustic bass, and delete the analog. So this is my first track for the score. So the next one would be probably the keys. So we have an organ here. I hold Option, I move this track up, put it in the track stack folder. I call this keys. There are several keys tracks, but they're all basically playing the same. The next thing would be the drums. And we have those on separate tracks. So we have a snare, a kick, and a hi-hat track. I'm going to take them all, hold Option, and move them up. Here we go. Now I deselect them, and I'm going to click on the snare. So you see there are some muted regions here, so I'm just going to drag around them and delete them. And do the same down here. Drag around. Let's now fix the kick region. This time, instead of deleting the muted events, let's select the kick events and invert the selection. To do this, go to the Edit menu and select Invert Selection, or press Shift-I. So it will then allow me to just press the delete key and I get rid of all those muted events. Okay. We have to also clean the hi-hat region. Do the same thing. I'm going to select the hi-hat by clicking here and then do Shift-I and press delete. And that's cleaned up. And now I can select the 3 drum regions and join them together. Command J and delete the extra tracks that I don't need anymore. Okay, let's open the piano roll editor and look at this drum part here. I just want to see where the kick drum sits. So it's the B1. The standard is C2. That's the general Midi standard for drum set notation for the kick drum. Here's a way how you can transpose it without accidentally changing the position of the notes, because that's what happens when you drag things around. So here we go. I open the event editor right here, and now I see all these notes here, all these events here are highlighted in blue. And if I double click one of the pitches here for the kick, just one, and I change it to C2, then the whole kick drum will be transposed. That's really handy. Let's now see what this newly created drum set region looks in the score editor. Select it, just click on it and press in. Alright, so here is our score editor. Now the first thing you need to understand, there are two inspectors for a region now. If we click on the region here, then this inspector, region inspector, relates to playback. Now if you click on the score here, you see it switches. And these are our parameters here as they relate to the score view, and they do not affect the playback. That's very important to understand. Okay, so we're going to click on the score, make sure we're in the score region inspector. Let's change the name of the region to drum set. So see, it changed it here as well. This region is now called drum set. Alright, so the next thing is that I change the style of this staff to drums. This looks already very nice for a drum set part, and most people would be happy with that. Unfortunately, if you want to publish your music, it does not confirm with publishing standard practices. So we have to trim it a little bit, and I will show you how. So let's go to layout here, that's the local menu for the score editor, and go to show staff styles. Okay, and drums are selected because we have it here in the region inspector selected as well. So first thing, we don't want to change the default staff styles. So I'm going to go here under new and I say duplicate staff style. So now I'm going to call this drum set standard. Okay, now in order to see what I'm doing in the score view down here, I need to change the style here to the one that we just newly created, drum set standard. Okay, looks the same of course because we haven't done anything yet to it. Couple things we need to do. First of all, the pitches aren't right. Yeah, the snare should be, if you think treble clef for a moment, the snare should sit here on the C line and the kick drum should be on the F line. So let's do that. But before we do that, we need to do something else. It's also standard that whatever you play with your hands should be up stem, and whatever you play with the feet goes down stem. This staff style is based on two layers. You can tell because you see there's an up and down stem direction. And the snare is in the lower one with the kick drum. So we got to get rid of this. And I'm going to create instead the snare in the upper layer. So I'm going to go plus, it put a kick drum in, but we can switch this to snare. And here it is. Now it's screwed up a lot of other things. For example, now we have only one staff line. and we need 5. So I'm gonna go here, click, and go drum 5. Now I have 5 staff lines. Also, the stem direction needs to be changed again to up and down. Okay, so the snare, let's put the snare on the C line. The way you do this is position, and you can click and drag, actually double click in the position field here, and then you can drag. So I'm going to put it on the C line, and we're going to correct the kick drum position. I'm going to drag that up. So that's a very nice drum set part now. Let's now look at the lead vocals. Let's open the vocal track stack, and here are our lead vocals. The first thing I do again is copy that track with the region. I hold Option, grab the region, and move it up here. I assume that you already flex pitched your vocal track and that you're familiar with flex pitch altogether, and you're ready to extract MIDI from this track. So let's select the track. That's the vocal track, and turn flex pitch on. That's the master button for the flex pitch, and in my case I already flex pitched the vocals, so that button is on as well, and it's set to flex pitch right here. Okay. Alright, so now if I double click this region and I go to edit here, at the very bottom it gives me this option. It says create MIDI track from flex pitch data. Now if you haven't done any flex pitching on that track, it probably grays this one out, so you can't select it. Then you have to analyze audio for flex editing first, which is right above that command. Okay, so let's create a track. Okay, let's close the editor here and find that newly created MIDI track. It's right here. So this one, I'm going to pull this up, so I'm not going to get confused here, and pull it right underneath that vocal track. And if I open this in the score editor, it shows me this as grand staff. So I'm going to switch this to treble. Okay, so here is my vocal. If I don't like the 16th notes, I might change the quantization settings a little bit. Probably not a good idea though in this case. So I'm going to leave it where it is. Now that we have prepared the individual parts, we need to prepare this for export. And let's put this in the right score order here. The drum set part is usually placed at the bottom of the score. Then the vocals should be on top, that's correct. Keys next, bass below that. Bass is above the drums usually. So this is the correct order. Don't forget that we still need a guitar part, and that guitar part we will generate in Finale. So for now this is great. Let's now just look at the individual parts in the score. Drums are good. Bass. Okay, score. Let's change the style to bass, and maybe the name electric bass sounds better. Keys is fine. Vocals, excellent. So let's see what this looks like. Good. And the vocal also excellent. Okay, so let's select those regions, and then under the window menu select Open Score Editor. Here under Layout, create score set from selection. The best way to get this thing into Finale is by using the score as music XML format. Yeah. Pick a name and save it onto your desktop. And I will open Finale. It should look just like it did in Logic.